In 2008, 18-year-old Matt Hay from the United States was feeling directionless. He had no interest in continuing his studies or starting a job. He asked his parents for guidance, but even they were unsure about his future. Around this time, Matt watched the 2007 film Into the Wild, which told the true story of a young man named Christopher McCandless, who abandoned his possessions and society to live in the wilderness of Alaska. McCandless survived 130 days in an abandoned bus before dying of starvation. The film deeply impacted Matt. He felt it reflected his own inner conflict. Inspired, he decided to go on a similar journey, not permanently, but to disconnect for a while and find clarity. Matt began researching a long-distance hiking trail and discovered the Pacific Crest Trail, a path that begins at the Mexico-US border and stretches north through California, Oregon, and Washington. It passes through deserts, forests, and rugged mountainous terrain, covering over 1,600 miles. By spring 2008, Matt had made up his mind. He packed his gear, informed his parents vaguely that he was going on a trip without knowing when he would return, and flew to the border area. From there, he began his solo trek north along the Pacific Crest Trail. The initial days were physically exhausting, carrying a heavy backpack filled with tools, food, and water. His body ached, but within a few weeks, he adapted. The landscapes changed constantly, sometimes barren desert, sometimes narrow forest trails surrounded by towering trees. Every night, he would set up camp beside the trail, sleep, and continue the next day. For many days, he didn't encounter a single person, just raw wilderness. Eventually, he had already walked nearly 1,300 miles. Only 186 to 217 miles remained. One morning, he packed his camp in a forested area and resumed hiking. The trail was initially broad but became narrow as it curved right. As he turned the bend, Matt saw something shocking: a large boulder ahead with two people, one man and one woman, sitting on it. They were wearing completely white clothes, head to toe. It wasn't just their sudden appearance that alarmed him, it was their stillness. Matt smiled, waved, and greeted them with a soft, "Hello," but they didn't respond. They stared at him, expressionless, silent. He greeted them again, still nothing. He smiled awkwardly and greeted them a third time. The couple didn't flinch. Matt briefly wondered if they had personal issues or just didn't want to interact. Feeling deeply uneasy, he turned away and continued down the trail without looking back. That night, he ventured 200 feet deep into the woods, far from the trail, and set up camp. He cooked his food over a fire, tied the leftover food securely in a bag, attached a thread to it, and flung it over a tree branch to keep it out of reach of animals. This was a standard hiking safety trick. Animals like bears are attracted to food, so suspending it high above reduces risk. The next morning, sunlight filtered into his tent. Matt woke up, exited his sleeping bag, unzipped the tent, and looked toward the tree. His food bag was missing. He looked around to confirm he was staring at the right tree, but it was the exact one. At first, he assumed a bear must have taken it. He went over to inspect, hoping to find paw marks or claw marks. Instead, what he saw froze him. There were human footprints near the tree. Two distinct sets. The prints circled the tree and continued toward and around his tent. Someone, or more precisely two people, had been around his camp in the dead of night. Matt packed his gear in panic and returned to the main trail without looking back. He climbed quickly, heart pounding. Several days passed without further incidents, but unease lingered. On the fourth day, he found himself needing to camp once again. He chose a secluded spot deeper in the woods, away from the trail. This time, as a precaution, he spread dry branches and twigs all around his camp to act as a noise alarm. His logic was simple: if someone stepped on them, the cracking sounds would wake him up. He placed the branches carefully in all directions. That night, around 1 a.m., Matt was jolted awake. He heard twigs snapping. Something or someone was walking around his camp, unbothered by the noise. Then came whispering, soft, murmuring voices. Not one, but many. He couldn't understand the language. The whispers seemed to come from multiple directions, like people talking in each other's ears. For nearly 7-8 minutes, they whispered and moved. Then, sudden silence. No footsteps retreating, no talking, just complete stillness. This terrified Matt even more. The absence of sound was unnatural. He realized that the only way this silence was possible was if those people were standing absolutely still, just outside his tent. He clenched the hunting knife he had kept close to his mouth as he slept. He didn't make a sound. At dawn, Matt cautiously emerged. No one was around, but the dry branches were crushed, and the ground was covered with footprints circling his tent. The whisperers had been real. Once again, Matt packed and ran up the trail. Soon, he entered Mount Shasta Forest, infamous for strange disappearances. Unlike Lassen National Park, which had no major incidents, Mount Shasta had a history of people vanishing without a trace. Even bodies weren't found. In some cases, survivors reported friends disappearing within seconds after just turning their heads. The first 3 days in Shasta were uneventful, but on the 4th day, while climbing a mountain path, Matt looked back and saw 2 tiny white dots moving up the trail far behind. He instantly recognized them. The white-clothed couple had returned. Despite being dozens of miles behind, they were unmistakable. He pulled out his map. The nearest village was Castella, 28 miles away. He started running. He kept looking over his shoulder. From morning to afternoon, he ran non-stop, stopping only for water and food. As evening fell, the trail narrowed, visibility dropped. He was exhausted but determined not to camp near the trail again. He went deeper into the woods, found a secluded spot and set up his tent, but did not unpack his gear. He feared he may have to flee. He spread dry wood around again and lay inside his sleeping bag, fully clothed, knife in hand. He drifted into sleep, only to be awakened by the all-too-familiar sound of twigs breaking. Multiple voices whispered. But then, something new happened. A bright torchlight shone directly onto his tent from above. It stayed there for 30 seconds, illuminating everything. Matt panicked. Someone had tracked him through deep forest, even though he had camped hundreds of feet off the trail. He made a decision: run for his life or stand and face whatever was out there. He unzipped his tent, leapt out with his knife, slashing the air in all directions and screaming loudly, but hit nothing. Then, behind him, he heard twigs snap again. He turned and saw a shadowy figure covered in some kind of dark, reflective material sprinting toward him. Matt ran blindly through the forest. He collided with trees, stumbled through underbrush, until he spotted a fallen tree. One large tree had fallen under another standing one, creating a hollow space. He crawled underneath and pressed his back against the standing tree. He lowered his head, covered his face, and stayed completely still. Dozens of torchlights flickered in the distance. This wasn't just 2 people. It was a group. They were searching, moving slowly with lights, whispering in an unrecognizable language. Matt remained hidden until dawn. Even after the lights disappeared, he waited for hours. Then, gathering courage, he emerged, didn't even collect his gear, and sprinted toward the main trail. Eventually, he reached Castella and contacted the police. He drank water, ate some food, and tried to make sense of it. He thought, maybe the first time was just food theft. Maybe they were hungry. But what about the second night? Why did they circle his tent and whisper without taking anything? To his surprise, the police believed him. He wasn't the first to report such an experience. Other hikers had come out of the woods, reporting being followed, harassed, and hunted by unknown figures. Many never made it back. Matt's family came to pick him up. Even after returning home, he was haunted by 2 questions. Who were those people? How did they always find his exact camp location, even when he hid deep in the forest at night? And one last mystery: why did their voices disappear into silence, and what language were they whispering in? Matt tried to follow up with the police in Mount Shasta later, but authorities admitted they had no answers. Too many people had disappeared. Too many stories had gone unexplained. They said, "Forgive us, we haven't been able to find out what happens in that forest." To this day, Matt Haig has never gone hiking again.